Hey guys, you're welcome back to my channel. Today thank you so much for stopping by. In this video, we'll be cutting and sewing this jumpsuit with an elastic waist and zipper at the back. If you're interested, keep on watching and let's get started. For this tutorial, I used 3 yards of Ankara prints. I will start by cutting my upper bodice first. To do that, I'm going to fold my fabric into 4 because I'm cutting both the front and the back bodice together. So I'll go ahead and open my fabric to show you guys how to fold it. I'll first of all fold my fabric into 2 like this. After folding into 2, I'll go ahead and fold it over like this. So I'm folding this fabric the way we normally fold our fabric when cutting out a boo-boo dress. So after folding, my fabric is folded into 4, just like this. Okay, so to know the amount of fabric to fold, you are going to measure from your center back to where you want your sleeves to stop. Okay, that's how wide your fabric should be. Next thing I'll do is to mark my half length. So my half length is the distance from my shoulder to my waist point, which is 16 inches. I'm going to add 1 inch to that measurement for my stitching allowance. So instead of marking 16 inches, I'll mark 17 inches all the way and I'll roll a straight line across. So that is where my half length is going to stop. After doing that, guys, next thing I'm going to do is to mark my zipper allowance. For the zipper allowance, I'll be using 1 inch. So remember, my fabric is folded into 4, meaning I have both the front and the back and pattern together. But I'll mark my 1 inch for the zipper allowance and I'll connect into a straight line. The next thing I'll do is to determine the length of my sleeves. To do that, you are going to measure from your center back to the length you want your sleeves to be. So after the zipper allowance, I'm going to mark it. So what I have here is 16.5 inches, which is more than enough for me. So my sleeves is going to be as long as 16.5 inches, and I'm measuring from my zipper allowance, which is my center back. So after you are done doing that, the next thing you are going to do is to mark the distance from your shoulder to your bust point. Mine is 10 inches, so I'm going to mark the 10 inches all the way like this, and I'll roll a straight line across. Next thing I'm going to do is to place my bust circumference divided by 4 on this bust point. I'll indicate that with a dot. After doing that, go ahead and determine how free you want the upper bodice of your your jumpsuit to be. For me, I'll be adding just half an inch for ease, and I'll add 1.5 inches for my stitching allowance. On my waistline, I'll place my waist circumference divided by 4. So go ahead and determine how free you want the waistline to be. Since we are going to be sewing an elastic band to the waist area, I went ahead to add 1.5 inches for ease allowance, and I added 1.5 inches as my stitching allowance. So I connected from the waistline to meet the bust line like this. The next thing I'll do is to mark my neckline measurements. For the neck width, I'll be using 3.5 inches, and for the depth, I'm only marking the depth for the back. So I'll be taking 1 inch, sorry. So I'll connect from the neck depth to meet the neck width, as you can see me doing. Next thing I'll do is to take the neck depth for the front. So from my zipper allowance on this center front, I'm going to go out by 1.5 inches. I'll replace this 1.5 inches with a band. So if you don't want yours to be too wide, you can do 1 inch. So before I do that, I'm going to curve out this armhole area because our armhole is not supposed to be straight. So I'm using my free hand to just create like an armhole curve on this armhole area. Okay, after doing that, I'm going to slant from this 1.5 inches to meet the neck width. Okay, so you can slant from this zipper allowance to also meet the neck width depending on what you want. So I will extend my back neckline into the zipper allowance. After doing that, I will adjust my zipper area. Remember, I took 1 inch as my zipper allowance. On this waistline, I will reduce the 1 inch by half an inch. So I'm taking out half an inch. This is to avoid zip bulge. Okay, so I'm going to slant it as you can see me doing, so that when I fix my zipper, it's not going to bulge on the waist area. After doing that, guys, I'm going to go ahead and cut. So my fabric is folded into 4. I'm going to cut out the back neckline first. I'll cut out this excess fabric on the waist area and the armhole area. After doing that, I'm going to open my fabric up, as you can see me doing. I'm doing this because I don't want to join the shoulders, okay? And I've already ironed my fabric, so I know where the center of my shoulder is. So after turning my fabric in place, I'll choose one side, which is going to be the front, and it's obviously where I've already marked. So I went ahead to just cut out the front neckline. Okay, so after cutting, this is what I have, guys. This is what it looks like. This is the front. So guys, next thing I'll do is to separate my pattern, okay, front to front and back to back, as you can see. So I'm going to measure around the neckline, okay, all the way around from the back neckline to the front neckline, and whatever I have is what I'm going to use to cut out my band. Okay, so what I have is about 23.5 inches. So I'm going to times it by 2 because my fabric is folded into 2. The next thing I'll do is to still reduce the zipper bulge. So just like I did before on this waistline, I'm going to just take out half an inch. Okay, I'll mark half an inch and I'll connect it back into the neckline area in a slant, as you can see. After doing that, I'm going to cut it out. Okay, so after cutting, I have my back piece, okay, and you can see that the back piece is splitted into 2 because we'll be fixing our zipper. Okay, so after doing that, guys, this is what I have. So guys, I'm going to open my fabric in place, as you can see. So the way it is, I have the front and the back for one. For the other one, I also have the front and the back, as you can see. So I'm going to arrange the fabric in place for you guys to see, and I hope you guys are following. Okay, so this is what I have. The next thing I'm going to do is to cut out my band to just conceal the neckline. So for the band, I measured 23.5 inches. The width, I went ahead to use 2.5 inches, and it's on fold, meaning everything here is 5 inches. Okay, but the fabric is serving as the lining also, and I have 2 of it. So I'm going to place it on the neckline from the back, and I'll sew all the way to meet the front. The band is 2.5 inches because I'm using half an inch as my stitching allowance, and I want the remaining 2 inches to cover my chest area. Okay, so I took out 1.5 inches from the waist area. I'm not supposed to replace it with the same 1.5 inches because that way is not going to cover my chest. I hope you guys understand. So I'll just go ahead and sew and cut out the pants. So for the pants, I've gone ahead to fold my fabric into 2 and I'll be cutting out the front first. To know the length of your jumpsuit, go ahead and take out the, your half length. My own half length is 16 inches. Okay, taking out the 16 inches, I went ahead to measure the rest part. So the first thing I do was to measure out my guideline, which is going to be the waistline. I'll label it my waistline. From that point, I'm going to go down by 8 inches, which is the distance from my waist to my hip. I'll also indicate that and I'll roll a straight line across. I'll label this line my hip. The next point I'll take is my crotch line. So there are different ways you can get your crotch line. You can measure your hip and divide it by 4, and then since this is a jumpsuit, you can go ahead and add 2 inches to it for ease. But the one I normally use, I'm going to put a video on the screen. Okay, that's the one that works for me, but you don't have to use mine. Like I said, there are different methods by which you can get your crotch line, but whatever you get, since it's a play suit, go ahead and add 1.5 inches or 2 inches to that measurement for ease. After taking my own measurement, what I had was 27 inches. I divided it by 2, which gave me 13 inches. I added 2 inches to that 13 inches, making it 15 inches. So I marked 15 inches as my crotch line, and I went ahead to rule a straight line across, and I labeled it my crotch. Next thing I did was to place my waist circumference. So on the waistline, I placed my hip circumference divided by 4 plus 1 inch for ease. I went ahead to bring in my upper bodice and I placed it on the waist area, and they are matching. The same measurement I placed on the waistline, I placed it on my hip line, and I also placed the same measurement on the crotch line. So the measurement is my hip circumference divided by 4 plus 1 inch. Okay, so to get my crotch extension line, I went ahead to place my tape on the crotch line, and what I had there was 11 inches. I divided the 11 inches into 4. It gave me 2¼ I approximated it and I made it 3 inches. So I extended from that straight line okay, by 3 inches, as you can see. So I'm connecting from the hip line to meet the 3 inches. Okay, so I've gotten my crotch extension line. The next thing you're going to do is to determine how wide you want your pant to be, how big you want it to be. So I'm going down by my crotch line, from my crotch line by 4 inches, which is going to be my tie line. I'll roll a straight line across. After doing that, go ahead and measure around your tile. Whatever you have, you're going to divide it by 2, not by 4. Okay, that's if you want your pant to be free. You can divide it by 2 and then go ahead and add 1 inch or 2 inches to it, depending on how wide you want your pant to be. For me, I'm marking 14 inches all the way down. That is how wide I want my pant to be, and I'll connect to the length of my pant. After doing that, guys, we are done with the front pattern, so I'm just going to go ahead and cut. So pay close attention so you know where to cut. So guys, after cutting, this is what I have. I'm going to use this to cut out the back. So I've already gone ahead to fold my fabric into 2 for the back, and I made it longer than that of the front. It is longer and wider than that of the front. So I'm going to place them like this. Okay, I'll make sure I leave allowance on this crotch area, and I'll also leave allowance on the waist area, as you can see. Okay, so the next thing I'll do is to extend this crotch line to meet the fabric, to meet this new fabric. Okay, after doing that, guys, on this waistline I'm going to go up by 1 inch, okay, from the front waistline. And for the back, I want to extend by 2 inches, but I think you should just extend by 1.5 inches or 1 inch, because I had to cut out the excess because it wasn't matching with my upper bodice. Okay, so I'm marking 2 inches, as you can see me doing, because I'll be fixing my zipper to the back. I decided to make it straight. After that, I went ahead to extend the crotch line by another 3 inches for the back. After doing that, I'll now connect from that point in a curve to meet the 3 inches like this. Okay, for the side, I also went ahead to extend it by 2 inches. I'm marking the 2 inches all the way to the end of this band. Okay, after doing that, guys, I'm going to work on the waist area. So remember, I went up by 1 inch. I extended the waistline. I'm going to slant it back, okay, to meet the waistline, as you can see me doing. After doing that, guys, that is all for the back pattern. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and cut. Pay close attention so you know where to cut. So guys, after cutting, this is what I have. I'm going to go ahead and pin the crotch together, and I'm going to sew using my stitching allowance. For the back, I'll use my zipper allowance to stitch it. Okay, so I've gone ahead to sew my band in place to the upper bodice, and this is what I have, guys. You can see what it looks like on the inside. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is to figure out where I want to close on the center. Okay, so it depends on how deep you want the neckline to be. You can see that I've already ironed my shoulder in place, just so I know where my shoulder is. So I'm going to place my tape on this shoulder. Because I've ironed it, I know where the shoulder is. Okay, so I'll go down from the shoulder by 10 inches, which is my bust point. That is how open I want my chest line to be. Okay, the opening on the chest. So I'm marking 10 inches from my shoulder line. Okay, go ahead and mark whatever you want to mark. You can decide to go up to close it a bit more. You've already seen my own outcome, so you've already seen how open it is. I'll mark the same 10 inches on the other part of this band on the inside, because that's where I'm going to sew, just so I know where my sewing will stop when I'm sewing. Okay, so another way to also measure is to measure from the back neckline all the way down to where you want it to stop. And as you can see, mine is 16 inches. So what I'm going to do is to place them side by side. Okay, I'll place the front piece right side facing right side. I'm going to match them up like this, and I'm going to sew from the waist, and I'll stitch that 10 inches mark. I'll make sure I stitch it very well. So after sewing it in place, this is what it looks like. Okay, this is what it looks like on the inside. I also went ahead to iron it flat. you can see this is where my opening is going to stop. Okay, I've also gone ahead to sew the crotch line of my front pattern. Okay, what I'm going to do is to match the front pattern to the upper bodice. As you can see, the waist area is matching. I'm going to match them center to center. Okay, so the stitch that I have on the upper bodice, I'm going to place it on the stitch that I have on this crotch area, and I'll sew using my 1-inch allowance. I've gone ahead to do that, guys, and this is what I have. So what I'll do is to fold the back, as you can see me doing. The back is still splitted into two. So for the back crotch, I went ahead to sew, and I used my gather stitch to just hold about 6 inches. Okay, and I sewed the rest. Okay, so what I'll do is to loosen this gather stitch. I did that to make it very easy for me, okay, because my zipper is still going to extend to this 6 inches. Okay, so after opening it up, this is what I have. I'm still going to stitch them right sides facing right sides, like I said before, because I added 2 inches to the crotch area of my back pattern. The waist became too much, so I decided to just trim it out. After sewing the crotch line in place, guys, this is what I have. Guys, what I'm going to do now is to first of all hem my sleeves. Okay, and I'll use my 1.5 inches stitching allowance to sew the both sides of my jumpsuit. I'll also go ahead and hem the base of my jumpsuit. I'll sew the crotch area together, and I'll fix my zip. So I'm basically doing everything at once. Okay, so go ahead and fold your sleeves, sew the crotch line, hem the base of your jumpsuit, and fix your zipper. Okay, after doing that, guys, this is what I have. I fixed my zipper in place. So the next thing I'm going to do is to sew my elastic band. Okay, to just give it that gathered effect on the waist area. You can decide to just tie your waist area with rope. Okay, so it depends on what you want. So I'll be using this small elastic band. I'm going to just measure out 26 inches, meaning I've reduced 2 inches from my original waist measurement, but this is even too much. By the time I'm done sewing, I'm just going to cut off the excess. Okay, so I'm going to place this elastic band on the opening, that's the joining that I have on the waist area, and I'm going to sew. So while I'm sewing, I'll keep pulling to give me that gathered effect. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. Okay, after sewing, guys, this is what I have. Okay, so like I said, you can decide to add rope. So you just create a casing, and you're going to pass your rope through. So it depends on what you want for the waist area. So after pulling, I'll sew all the way to the end. After sewing, guys, this is what I have, guys. I'm going to go ahead and give my jumpsuit a good press, and that is all for this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.